What is the most annoying trend currently in gaming? His example is for me, it's saying, but is it worth $70 to every new game? Gaming has never been a cheap hobby, and I'm happy to pay any game that looks interesting to me. We can answer that second part too, but what you guys personally, what is the most annoying gaming trend happening now that like just irks you? I'll go
Uh,
around. Yeah, go ahead. Whoever wants to go first, go first.
I know my system has problems, but what about this thing your system did?
No, you
Oh
mean
yeah,
you mean the sub? What? There's a name for that. What
Whataboutism.
aboutism? Yeah, I mean that's yeah. God.
Yeah, whataboutism? Suddenly, we just seem to be on a race towards the bottom in terms of quality and content and caring. And as long as we're not the first one to hit that bedrock, then I'm part of the winning team.
Yeah. No, you're right about that because I've had to deal with that bullshit in recent weeks. Like, I'm saying some things about PlayStation. I'm like, listen, I think PlayStation's making wrong moves. Oh, what about Xbox? Like, where did I say Xbox in that tweet, bro? I said PlayStation. We ain't talking about no Xbox right now. You know, it's hilarious. All right, so that's yours, Adam. Do you have a current gaming trend that you find annoying?
It's just how large these games are with all these damn updates and patches, and my Call of Duty got even bigger. Like I said with you before, that shit, the next version better come on a fucking hard drive, or at least on a large flash or something. Because it's just too big, and I'm constantly trying to figure out how to make it smaller, deleting the campaign and all that shit. I'm just tired of it because it's like 1 minute you're like, oh, okay, I can download this game. It's 30 gigs or whatever. But then once you do that, there's all these patches that have to go on top of it, and then it's massive, and there's always updates. And some people are like, oh, updates are good if it's fixing stuff, but if it's adding shit and it's making it larger and larger, and then these consoles didn't come with a good amount of space, we're screwed. So I'm just tired of that. I wish we would just get a larger drives and not have to worry about the fucking size, because now that's a big part of gaming itself, just the size of everything.
Yeah. Manny, any current gaming trends that annoy you?
hmm. I mean, so far everybody's sort of said, well, the whataboutism and the other one. Adam's talking about how much game space these things are taking up these days. Oh yeah, I know. After the fact, day one patches and after the fact patches.
Yeah.
Or essentially, people are there, and this is ever since they started putting hard drives in these damn things. Where now it's like, okay, now you can release a broken game, and then we'll fix it later. Cyberpunk.
Yeah,
After the fact, after the fact of the after the fact patch.
That's right.
Yeah,
You gotta patch patches now.
You gotta patch the patch because you broke whatever was working on the last one.
Yeah, I love having to decide whether I'm going to play the game when it's new or when it's playable.
Oh shit.
I just saw a post at an announcement from Ubisoft apologizing. Apparently, they've been putting all these patches of Valhalla that's been causing other problems and breaking shit. So it's like they're patching one thing and breaking something else.
This man.
Oh well, I guess it's a good thing you guys finished the game before they decided to blow it up.
Man, I had to deal with one crazy. It's ridiculous. All right, Carlos, annoying gaming trend.
I agree. I agree with everything that's been said. But I think the one for me is the death of the AA studio.
Oh.
Oh yeah.
That's we're living in a world where there's no real middle class of gaming development. It's all either an indie studio or it's AAA. And we've seen it with a lot of studios this past generation going down. EA's been killing a lot of our favorite AA studios that they've acquired. Sony with was it Team Japan, they've closed down a lot of that studio. So I think the direction that a lot of these studios are going is they only like profits, like big margin profits. And if they make a game where it only makes its own money, recuperates its own money, that's not good enough to most big studios. So
it's like the gambler mentality. It's go all in. That's it, or don't even bother. So there's no middle ground. It's like, I just want to bet a little bit and see how it goes. Nope, put all your chips in. Go AAA. Give us the big shit. It may not work out that way. Well, then don't even make your shit. Don't even bother.
Yeah, because I mean, even like if you make a game that is even like it doesn't give you a profit, but it pays off for what it was worth. There's always a possibility that you can do a sequel and it'll have more attention. Yeah. More people are going to be looking toward to it, and word of mouth and all that stuff.
That's that what if factor. They don't want to go with that. They want guarantees.
They want guarantees, yeah.
Yeah.
This is why last year, it's funny we're bringing it back to Valhalla. This is why last year Ubisoft released a brand new IP, right? The Immortal Phoenix game, right? Everybody that played it loved it. But where did Ubisoft put all their marketing to? They put it to fucking Assassin's Creed. They put it to Watch Dogs, the guaranteed ones, even though people are like, this game's better than those two. And
no one paid attention to it.
No one
paid
paid attention to it.
No
yeah, everybody that played liked it. I guarantee you this was going to happen. When they released Phoenix 2, right, and it's successful, the original people were like, "Where the fuck were you guys from the beginning?" But I blame that on Ubisoft. They didn't advertise that game right.
Dude, I don't understand why. Like, if you don't sell, like, say, what was that recent Viking Steam game that gained a lot of popularity?
I know the one you were talking about.
What, Valheim?
Yeah,
Valheim. Okay.
Yeah, Valheim.
How many millions of copies did Valheim sell? Last I had checked, it was over 6.
Wow.
Like, why don't you look at that and be like, hey, maybe one of these studios should pick up fucking Valheim 2. It's more than proven itself. It's gotten a name out there of its own accord. People know who it is. And there are constantly new games kind of trending on Steam. Well, not constantly, but new big games trend on Steam and break millions of sales a few times a year. Why aren't we turning those into franchises? They've proven themselves. They clearly deserve the money. And if you bring in some big publisher, like if you partner with them, with a big publisher with big publisher money, you can make some big games that have already been tested and approved and already have a good word in the gaming community. I don't understand why. Like, I do understand why they want to rush for AAA games, but why not put the extra money and put your whole hand in on an indie title and bump it up to a AA game? That's the part I don't understand.
Who knows?
Or even
Well, they'll never bump it up to a AA game. Like, if you want to partner with a big publisher, what's going to happen is somebody like Activision is going to buy Valheim and want 4 sequels, each bigger than the other, throwing like tons of money, and as soon as one fails, that's the end of the studio and the IP is just mothballed, right? So you don't want that. They'll just squeeze it for every ounce they can get out of it. It'll just become like Guitar Hero or Dead Space, just, and it's gone.
So can I ask you guys what you think? Does anybody have any ideas on how to save the AA title?
I don't know, man.
I mean, I feel like part it's not any one answer. You know what I mean? Like, where it's going to be, it has to be the people that are the actual people playing games getting over that idea that a game that it doesn't cost as much isn't a cheap game or a bargain bin game. And I think it's also partially also the developers sort of also trying to figure out laying on these games these exorbitant amount of sales that they need to hit, And I feel like a lot of times, a lot of ways, when we go back to the Sony internal studio, they weren't, granted they were charging AAA prices for those games, but those games were more AA things. Like Gravity Rush is a AA, both games. Gravity Rush wasn't even 60 as I remember. I think it was a $40 or $50 game.
Yeah, it was a cheaper game. Yeah, it was a cheaper
game. So at least they understood where it was.
Yeah, I mean that is a problem too, because again, if you release a $40 game, there's a certain segment of the gaming community that's like, 40, that's gonna be fucking cheap ass game. I'm not buying that shit.
And so like how is it, like, I think again the gaming community needs to get over that idea that a game that doesn't cost as much can't give you the amount of hours that you or game enjoyment that a big budgeted tentpole game would give you.
Yeah,
and even a game like The Order 1886, which is cost as much as a full-fledged game, but it was clearly a AA game, kind of with a little bit AAA graphics. But
that's the thing about that game. I think the reason why it probably was in the AAA space is because the sheer amount of money that it costs to make that game look as good as it did. To be honest,
I'm sure. I mean, I'm sure the game even I don't think that game failed by any means.
No, it didn't.
It sold pretty well. So but they obviously Sony wasn't happy because they didn't get as much of a return as they expected. So
I think it's more. I think it's also like we've seen with Sony where it's like even if a game gets bad reviews, like a game like Dave's Gone, which has those sorts of bad, like it has middle reviews or middle to bad reviews, that they don't want to. And even if the game does really well, they don't want to invest in something like that because it already has the stigma. If they did invest in Days Gone 2, would they be able to gain back any of the money that they spent on it? They probably don't want to bet on that. Kind of like with Order, where it's like it got such bad reviews, lots of people complaining about game length and all that other stuff. It's a flawed game, but I still think it had potential. Just like what I think that Days Gone, or a lot of people feel Days Gone is.
I wonder when we're going to see a breaking point with these studios of how much money they put into a title. Because you just can't keep going up and up. Like, oh, it's $100 million for this one, $200 million. I think what is it? I think right now it's up to Call of Duty. I think the Call of Duty ones are in the $100 million per game. It's like ridiculous. When is it going to be like, we need to stop. We need to really come up with a different strategy than just throwing all this money into these games. Because then we're expecting all these money through microtransactions and all these other things to compensate. There's got to be a breaking point.
But a game like Call of Duty, the reason why they cost an exorbitant amount of money is because they put a lot of it to its actors and its advertisements, because those things are everywhere. They're
they just keep redoing the same old map, so they're definitely not putting the money in that. How many times am I going to play Nuketown? Shit. Right? Fucking, we're bringing back a fan. Come on, you're doing it with all the maps. It's too much. It's too much.
All right, let's
retextured it.
Let's move on to. We're still got to answer the rest of the question. I was gonna go for the low hanging fruit. I was gonna say Battle Royale. My most annoying gaming show, but that's too easy. That's too easy.
A lot of people like it though.
I know.
That's
the one I'm gonna go with is a little bit weird. But it's still kind of related to that. I'm getting tired of every game. Kind of. Actually, I'm gonna fuck that. I'm giving two answers to this. One is I'm tired of every game, these newer games, all having the same look. It's like every game wants to look like Fortnite or look like a Pixar movie. It's like all these cartoony type of games. I'm like, is this the trend? I remember how like back in 2007, like the trend was like muddy gray games. Now the trend is like colorful Pixar movie games.
All the roguelike, fucking roguelike, every other fucking game on Switch, roguelike. Oh, another roguelike.
Another one, yeah. Don't get me started on that. But the one I'm gonna go with is I'm getting really tired of what I'm gonna call them like boardroom multiplayer games, like multiplayer games made by committee. Oh, that's successful. Make that into a game. I'm talking about Crucible. I'm talking about Apex Legends. I'm talking about Outriders. These games that really are kind of soulless games that are just made to ape other games, and I'm not even talking about the ones that bombed, those Cliffy B games that all bombed, a couple others. I'm kind of getting tired of that. It's like these kind of like multiplayer games by committee, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'll give props to Overwatch and stuff. Like, I don't care about that, but they're doing something kind of cool and different, even aesthetically and like mechanically. And it even has a story in there. That's cool. But like games like Outriders, again, I don't think the game is bad, but you could just tell that shit was made by committee. Oh, third person cover shooters, yeah, we like that. Loot base, yeah, we like that. Throw that in there. It's like, all right.
Well, the one thing about multiplayer games is the fact that you don't need to think about point of interest. All you need to really do is just make a level and gameplay. Everything else, like in other words, like in designing a level that guides a player through there, or has different sorts of things. You really don't need to think too much about that. You just need to. It's just a big battleground that you could literally, where battles can happen anywhere in there.
Yeah.
So I think the reason why I think the reason why a lot of them are investing in them because they take so little to get going.
Yeah. And that's why, Manny, remember, we talked about this off here, but you were like, how long is that multiplayer game going to come out for PlayStation 4 or 5 years? I'm like, it's a multiplayer. It's like probably 2 or 3 tops. And you're like, yeah, you're right, because This just be. It's probably just be a big battle arena game.
Yeah, it's gonna be a battle arena. It's gonna have it's gonna have different looking places. Even you talk about Overwatch. Overwatch launched with no story. All they did was they just hired a bunch of people to do cinematics and comics and stuff for it to sort of develop the plot of the game. But in the levels, you don't hear. They're not.
Nothing.
There's no real storytelling in them.
No, it's not. All right, Brett, you already went, right? I think you were the first guy that went. So we'll go with. You did, right, Brett? Just making sure.
Yeah, I did.
Okay. Brian, most annoying gaming trend of the moment.
I kind of have two, and they're kind of. I still don't know which one's really worse. My first one is games that have forced walking sequences in them. I fucking hate that shit. Like, why? Like, it is the epitome of nothingness. It's like, so why you force me to walk around very slowly after I spent like the last half hour of the game like run around like a madman? It makes no sense. Like,
Is that for loading? Wasn't that the whole thing with that? Like,
No.
No, they don't do it just for loading now. It's just for the
no,
story.
they just do it so that they can like tell you like the story. It's like
Oh.
that's the most annoying thing ever. Like, and the one that did like the absolute worst was purely because of the type of game that it was, which was Metal Gear Rising.
Oh.
Like that's like
Yeah.
a fast-paced action game, and then you force me to slow down and listen to like some guy talk and walk. It's like, why?
Gears of War does that too, where like they have the obligatory like listening to the we need to go to the blah blah blah, and there's something on top of the thing. They all seem to have those.
just nonsense. Like, I really do not like it. Like, when games like, hey, okay, cool, you just ran here, so we're gonna force you like just to walk for a while. Like, no, let me run around and be a madman. This is why I love Half-Life 2. It's like they can tell you the story while you're jumping up and down on a desk. If you miss the story, that's your fault, and that's it. They move on. And speaking of moving on, the other thing that is equally as bad is unskippable cutscenes.
Oh man, I still can't believe some games do that shit too. I'm like, what the fuck?
Still do it.
I can understand the need to like hide like a loading screen in there. That's fine, but the main problem is that some of these cutscenes don't hide loading screens. They're just there, and they're unskippable. It's the most annoying thing ever. And I've seen some guy tweet about it like last week, saying that, oh, you shouldn't complain about unskippable cutscenes. I'm like, dude, I like playing games multiple times. I like to go through the game multiple times. First time round, I'll go through for the story. Next time round, I'll go through to fuck around. I don't need the story to interrupt me then, because I know the story. I've been through there, so let me skip the cutscenes. If your game has unskippable cutscenes, then to me, it just needs to go inside the trash, because it's dumb.
I have to agree.
Man.
Like, why? Or Brian, just to add to that, cutscenes you can't pause. I'm like, why?
Oh, that too.
Like Jesus.
Every cutscene should be pausable and skippable.
Yes,
Period.
it is crazy.
It's like we have stuff to do. Like, what if we get a phone call? What if Amazon comes around? Like, what if someone's shooting the neighborhood? Who knows? Stuff happens. Let's pause the cutscene. Like with games like Dark Souls, I can understand why they may not want to like pause cutscenes or pause gameplay, but still, it's just like, come on, like it makes no sense most of the time.
Yeah, or just the fact you can't pause even the main game. I can't stand that either. You know how many times I got killed in Outriders? I'm like, I'm gonna pause it. Brrr. Like, come on, son. Bullshit.
Yeah.
All right, Chris.
You can't pause in Division. You gotta hide.
Yeah, you can't.
somewhere.
You gotta hide somewhere. Yeah, Chris, what you got?
Well, Manny had my answer, which was the day one patch culture of just releasing broken shit and expecting to patch it day one. And then if you fail, then just day two or month one or whatever. But I think the other thing is like, can we get rid of Bobby Kotick's contract where he has a stock trigger that he can manipulate profit margins by firing people so that he hits his bonus marker every year? But, I'm like, God damn, dude, how much money do you need? He's an asshole.
Tell me how you really feel.